Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 79. This venerable one's Shizun is an actor. If he didn't know Chu Wanning like the back of his hand, Moran was afraid that he really might have been fooled by his serious demeanor and believed that nonsense. Shizun was Chu Wanning's son? Yeah right, he'd have to be dumb to fall for that. But it's not like he could just brush Shizun off. So in the days that followed, he simply played along with it, putting on a show like, oh gods. So that's how it is. I can't believe Shizun is actually a playboy. And other such. He had to admit that it was an interesting time, even though he had no idea what Chu Wanning was up to. So Moran made a sport of it, poking playfully at Chu Wanning every so often. Like that time when they were stopping at a tea house for a snack, and Moran, cheek in hand, eyes bright and round, had clamored, Shizun, Shizun. Chu Wanning swallowed his tea before lifting his eyelashes to look evenly at him. "Mn. Why won't you acknowledge Shizun as your child?" Chu Wanning replied, "It's not that I won't acknowledge him, it just isn't the right time yet." "Then when will the right time be?" "That will depend on him." He had such an air of profoundness about him that Moran's ribs hurt from holding in his laughter, even as he forced himself to put on his best pitying act, poor Shizun. Or that other time, as they were traveling side by side on horseback, when Moran had reached up and snapped a willow branch while passing by. He was fresh out of distractions and bored out of his mind, so he clamored for Chu Wanning again. "Shizun, Shizun. What is it? Can I ask you something?" Moran was all smiles. "About Shiniang. What kind of person is she? Is she pretty?" Note, Shiniang, referring to a Shizun's wife. Chu Wanning choked, then hastily cleared his throat to cover it up. "She's alright." "Eh? Just alright?" Moran was shocked. "I was so sure that someone who could catch Shizun's eye would be devastatingly beautiful." Moran steered his black horse closer to Chu Wanning's white one and asked slyly, "Is Shizun still keeping in touch with Shiniang?" "Keep in touch how?" Chu Wanning threw him a cold look and said darkly, "Your Shiniang is dead. They barely just started and he's already offed his own wife?" Moran almost choked on spit. "Dead? How did she die?" Chu Wanning, expressionlessly, "Birth complications. PFFFFFT. Ha 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 ha." If the situation wasn't like this, Moran probably would have fallen off his horse from laughing too hard. Of course Moran wouldn't just let such an amusing subject go. The next day, he washed a pouchful of fresh, plump cherries before setting off, to entice Chu Wanning into talking with him some more on the way. "Shizun, can I know who Shiniang was? What was her name?" Chu Wanning picked up a cherry and ate it with no discernible reaction, then said coldly, "She's already passed, what's the use in knowing her name?" Moran didn't miss a beat. "The sect leader has always taught us to be filial. Even if Shiniang is no longer with us, I, as a disciple, should still remember her name and go to pay my respects every winter solstice and Qingming." Chu Wanning kept eating his cherries, replying evenly, "No need. Your Shiniang wasn't a worldly person like that and she never cared for the smell of incense." Moran pursed his lips, rolling his eyes on the inside. "It's obvious that you just couldn't make up a backstory for Shiniang on the fly. Can't believe you just say she's unaffected and beyond common concerns with such a serious face." But he kept smiling on the outside. For Shiniang to be so refined, she must have been a cultivator too. Chu Wanning paused, then picked up another cherry between snow-white fingertips and ate it at his leisure before answering, "Correct." Moran blinked curiously. Which sect was she from? Chu Wanning estimated Shizun's age and quickly calculated in his head that he would have still been at Linyi at the time, so he said evenly, "Rufeng sect." "Oh," Moran's eyebrows went up slightly. Chu Wanning caught a loophole with that one. Rufeng sect had always favored their male disciples. Although the female disciples received the same teachings, they were never allowed the same opportunities to stand out and make a name for themselves. In fact, they never even left their names when out on missions, so even though the female cultivators of Rufeng sect were no less accomplished, they were only known as female cultivators of Rufeng sect out in the world, and none knew of their individual names. So Chu Wanning could make up whatever he felt like, and there would be absolutely no way to check. But Mo Ran wasn't one to just give up. He perked back up and persisted. Then when did Shizun and Shinyang meet? How did you two meet? Chu Wanning hesitated, not quite up to the task of making all that up on the spot. When his gaze fell on Mo Ran's bright sparkly eyes, he suddenly realized that he didn't have to answer the question at all. He immediately pressed his lips together and, with a sweep of his sleeve, said coldly, "What are you doing prying into this master's personal matters?" With that, he urged his horse on, white robes disappearing into the distance and leaving Mo Ran in the dust. The two of them roamed around for a couple of weeks, visiting the markets at numerous smaller sects and checking at every stall selling weapons and spiritual stones, but found absolutely nothing of note. On this particular day, after Chu Wanning finished exchanging notes with Xue Zhenyang via Haitang message, he and Mo Ran set off from the inn and headed toward the market at Gaiyuye to continue their investigation. Gaiyuye was the foremost medicinal sect of Jianghu and the sect that Xue Meng's mother, Madame Wang, came from. This sect was built on an island named Linling Isle. It wasn't an actual island, but rather the back of an enormous tortoise. The tortoise was thousands of years old and bound to the founder of the sect by blood pact, carrying the entire sect on its back as it traveled the oceans and nourishing the flora of the isle with its unique spiritual energy. Note: Lin equals rain, Ling equals bell. The disciples of Gaiyuye have always been enigmatic and removed from the world. The sect rarely ever interacted with the outside world. Only on the 1st and 15th of each month would the tortoise dock at the Yangzhou port so that other sects could board and purchase medicines. And merchants could peddle their weapons, spiritual stones, and other wares that aren't usually found on the island itself. Yet the most famous attraction on Linling Isle wasn't Gaiyuye, but Xianyuan Pavilion. Note: Xianyuan, name of the Yellow Emperor, a legendary sovereign. Xianyuan Pavilion was a subsidiary of Gaiyuye and a well-known trading post. They opened their doors twice per month, auctioning goods like Gaiyuye's top-grade medicines and rare treasures from various sellers. The merchandise often towed the line of permissibility in terms of the cultivation world's taboos, but no one was so bored as to make an enemy of Gaiyuye. After all, most of the medicines out there came from this sect. All things considered, Gaiyuye was no less powerful than the leading Rufeng sect. "Put your hood on, there's too many eyes here." More and more people were arriving at Linling Isle. Chu Wanning quietly reminded Mo Ran while tugging the hood of his own cloak lower. Xianyuan Pavilion's auction house had lavish private rooms for each of the great sects as a show of respect, but since this was where shady deals went down and stolen goods exchanged hands, cultivators generally kept their identities hidden so as to not attract any undue attentions or fatal misfortunes. Mo Ran and Chu Wanning stepped into Xianyuan Pavilion. The inside was split into 3 floors, with the center of the first floor occupied by a platform of white jade, shaped like a 9-petaled lotus flower and shrouded by 9 layers of impenetrable defensive barriers. This was where the merchandise is displayed during auction. With the white jade platform as center, extending into the 4 cardinal directions were rows of redwood benches, several hundred in all. These were the standard seats. The second floor were private booths, each with a large window made of golden cedar and a curtain of silver moon silk that allowed those inside to see the outside clearly, but blocked the side from outside. These booths protected the privacy of the guests, but they were expensive, costing 9,000 gold per 2 hours. Chu Wanning disliked crowding along with others, so he took out the gold pieces Xue Zhenyang had sent and didn't even hesitate. The servants of Xianyuan Pavilion that attended to the guests all had death pacts with the master of the pavilion, and would never leak any of the guests' personal information. But even so, Chu Wanning remained wary. he booked the booth with the best view and had the servant bring 2 pots of snowy fragrance tea, 8 pieces each of fresh and candied fruit, 4 pastries and 4 sweets, and then sent the servant away. With only Moran and himself left in the room, Chu Wanning finally lowered his hood as he stood by the window looking down at the masses of people below. According to the sect leader, Xianyuan is going to be auctioning off a weapon named Gile to return. Gile. Moran shook his head, never heard of it. It's a holy weapon. Moran started, a holy weapon? But didn't Jinchinj Lake already? I know. But supposedly this Gile was found in a nameless grave at the June Mountain. Its master probably didn't have any heirs to pass it to and so had it buried with him. I see. A holy weapon took as master only the one who named it, and upon his death, would then accept his heirs. Even if someone else were to get their hands on the holy weapon, they wouldn't be able to draw out even a tiny fraction of its true power. As far as Moran was concerned, there wasn't much point to buying a weapon like that. Seeing through his thoughts, Chu Wanning said, it's true that a holy weapon that does not acknowledge its user as master will not display its true power, but even then, it's still many times stronger than normal weapons. These people will definitely go all out. Moran grasped the situation. I understand Shizun's meaning now. Most people live their whole lives without even seeing a holy weapon. Since this Gile was found in a nameless grave and an ages-old one at that, everyone here will more likely than not draw out their own spiritual energy to test it, on the off chance they happen to be a descendant of its original master. There's no harm in trying, after all. Precisely. Moran continued contemplatively, holy weapons are rarely even seen, but one without a master just so happens to pop up for sale right at this juncture? No matter how you look at it, this has got to be that fake Gushin's work, bringing out a high-quality fake to bait everyone. To release their spiritual energies so that he can see if anyone here has the spiritual essence he's looking for. Chu Wanning sat down in a cushioned chair, poured himself a cup of snowy fragrance tea and leisurely drank it. Then he looked at the swarm of people below and said in a quiet voice, it's exactly as you said. But regardless of whether the holy weapon is real or whether it's part of the fake Gushin's scheme, it can't hurt to check it out. Just then, there was a ruckus down below. Chu Wanning and Moran peered downwards, and were both a little bewildered. Xianyuan Pavilion's golden gate stood wide open and 2 rows of blue-robed young men with their hair done up in jade crowns were striding openly through the crowd of cloaked cultivators with their faces hidden under hoods. The one in the lead was slender and handsome, not bothering with any form of concealment as he strolled right into the hall of this black market. Moran uttered, surprised, "Ye Wangzi." End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 80. This venerable one's ex-wife has come. The newcomer was none other than the modest gentleman, Ye Wangzi, who had shared a courtyard with Moran in Peach Blossom's spring. Today, he wore the Rufeng sect's blue crane robe embroidered with silver threads, a sapphire blue hairband and a silver sachet of auspicious beasts holding pearls at his waist. Although he had taken off his martial attire, his appearance was still heroic, added with a bit of elegance. The chief steward of the Xianyuan pavilion came forward to greet him. He lowered his head and said, "Young master Ye." Ye Wangzi nodded and said, "I have come to bid on something on the orders of my adoptive father. I'll have to trouble the chief steward to lead me upstairs. The pavilion master already knows that young master has arrived. The Rufeng sect's private room has already been prepared. I'll take you upstairs." Ye Wangzi led the dozen or so disciples of the Rufeng sect upstairs, leaving behind a crowd of people in the hall who covered their faces as they whispered to each other. The people of the Rufeng sect also came today. "Who is that young master? How come I've never seen him before?" Moran thought to himself, "You haven't seen him before, so there's naturally a reason why you haven't seen him before." On the other hand, he couldn't help but be curious. He watched as Ye Wangzi's figure disappeared around a corner, then said to Chu Wanning, Shizun, you also stayed in the Rufeng sect before. Do you know this young master yet? I don't know him. Chu Wanning frowned slightly. But I keep feeling that he looks familiar. He paused, closed his eyes, and thought for a while. In the end, he still shook his head. I can't remember. Mo Ran scratched his head and said, this young master yes stayed in the same courtyard as me in Peach Blossom Spring. His strength isn't bad. Now that he's here to bid on behalf of the Rufeng sect, his status in the sect shouldn't be low. Shizun actually doesn't know him. The Rufeng sect has a total of 72 cities and its members are widely spread. I don't like to move around and I don't feel like asking about the affairs of the sect, so it's not strange that I don't know him. As the two of them were talking, the Rufeng sect box on the third floor lit up with bright yellow candle light. Presumably, Ye Wangzi and his group had already entered and had taken their seats. The highest floor of the Xianyuan pavilion was specially reserved for the major sects, but it was rarely used, so the crowd has to raise their heads to look at it and found it very strange. With the public participation of the Rufeng sect, the anticipation for this auction was raised several notches. After a short period of time, the white jade lotus platform in the center suddenly glowed brightly. From the dome of the Xianyuan pavilion, a glowing red silk cloth was thrown down. A pretty girl, about 11 or 12 years old, wearing a snow-white silk cloth, descended from the sky with bare feet and gently landed on the cold white jade lotus platform. My apologies for making you wait, esteemed guests. I am the pavilion master of the Xianyuan pavilion. That pretty little girl smiled and said, I am grateful to all of you for coming from all over the world to attend this meeting. Naturally, the Xianyuan pavilion will continue its customary practice of presenting you with the finest treasures. Mo Ran's hearing was good, so he heard the people below discussing. The pavilion master of the Xianyuan pavilion is actually a little girl who is still wet behind the ears. Ayo, brother, you really don't know anything. Do you know how old this little girl is? 10? 15? She can't be 20, right? Hey, are you dumb? She's over 100 years old. You should be calling her great-grandmother, not a little girl. What? Brother Lu, are you kidding me? How could this little thing be 100 years old? This is the Gaiyu sect, the foremost medicinal sect of the world. What is impossible? It's just a pill for eternal youth, that's all. Wow. The person who exclaimed in a low voice must have been here for the first time. After hearing these words, he excitedly craned his neck and couldn't help but play with the pouch he carried with him. Obviously, he couldn't wait to know what kind of spiritual medicine and treasures the Xianyuan pavilion would take out to sell. The pavilion master did not disappoint them. With a snap of her fingers, the center of the stone lotus cracked open, and a small pedestal in the shape of a stamen slowly rose up. On the pedestal were 5 palm-sized velvet boxes. Each of the boxes was opened generously, revealing pills that glowed with a mother-of-pearl luster. Immediately someone shouted with a laugh, "Isn't this the infatuation pill? What's so unusual about it?" That's right. Even if the first thing to be sold is not a rare treasure, you can't use the infatuated pill to make up the number. The pavilion master heard the clamor below, but she did not get angry. Instead, she smiled and said in a clear voice, "Everyone has good eyesight. This is indeed the Chiking pill. However, as everyone knows, although the Chiking pill is difficult to refine, it is not a very rare item. Naturally, our Xianyuan pavilion will not use ordinary items to entertain our guests." With that, she picked up one of the brocade boxes, held it in her palm and clicked it shut. Although everyone was sitting far away from each other, there was a spirit mirror in front of them. They could clearly see the details of the treasures. At this time, everyone noticed the snake emblem on the lid of the box. Hanlin Divine Hands. Someone sucked in a breath of cold air. The pavilion master smiled and said, "That's right. Each of these 5 boxes of Chiking pills came from the pill furnace of our sex elder, Han Lin Divine Hands. Although ordinary infatuation pills can compel people to fall in love with them, their effect only lasts for 6 months and it is very easy to prepare the corresponding antidote. But these 5, she said cautiously as her delicate fingertips lifted the box, will last for 10 years, and there is no cure. What? Heavens, how is this possible? Han Lin Divine Hands is really too scary. The pavilion master waited for the clamor below to die down before she smiled and said, in order to distinguish these from ordinary infatuated pills, Han Lin Divine Hands named these pills, love pills. If you buy one of these pills and mix it with water and persuade someone to drink it, within 10 years, I guarantee that the other party will be infatuated with you and will not waver. A female cultivator asked in a loud voice, is there really no antidote for this pill after eating it? Then in case I don't like him in less than 10 years, won't I have to let him keep pestering me? Everyone chuckled. The second pavilion master also smiled politely and said, the young miss is right. Therefore, the Xianyuan pavilion would like to remind everyone that there is no antidote for the love pills in this world. Unless the 10 years are up, only death can cure it. If you are not infatuated with him, it is best not to drug him. After the introductions, they began to bid. Mo Ran looked at the people who were shouting one after another. Most of them were female cultivators. He couldn't help but be speechless. This is really too scary. That's right. The feelings that are earned like this is indeed tedious. Hearing Chu Wanning's response, Mo Ran turned his head and looked back and forth at him. He said with a smile, Shizun, you have to be careful. You're so good looking, I'm afraid that there is a Shizun Peak female cultivator here who might buy one and secretly put it in the water you drink, to make you fall in love with her. But you're a married man, you can't fall in love with someone else. Mo Ran was clearly making fun of him. Chu Wanning wanted to get angry, but this was the first time in his life that he heard Mo Ran say that he was good looking, so his anger quickly dissipated. He pursed his lips into a cold line and turned his face away from him. But if a lady really gave the other party this kind of medicine, she must really like the other party very much. Mo Ran muttered, watching as all 5 boxes of pills were quickly bought away, sighing and shaking his head, how pathetic. Chu Wanning stared at the snow-white wall for a while, then said calmly, if she really liked the other party, how could she bear to give them this kind of medicine? You're still young. There are some things that you don't understand. I'm still young. Mo Ran turned his head and smiled with deep dimples. I don't understand, but Shizun does? Then, does Shizun want to talk to me about Shinyang again? Get lost. Ha 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 ha. Amidst the laughter, the second item was placed on the display table. Taper-scented dew. The pavilion master introduced crisply. This is also from Han Lin's workshop. This is the latest medicinal dew that Han Lin has brewed. The first generation of Gai Yuye disciples have all tried it, and it's very effective. Another clamor started. Cultivator A was rather cultured, ink and dew. Cultivator B was a little hungry, buns of fragrant dew. Cultivator C was perverted, touch the fragrant dew. Chu Wanning pondered for a moment, then his eyelashes trembled slightly. He looked at the 5 porcelain bottles on the display table. Taper-scented dew. Dream-eating taper. The second pavilion master didn't mean to spoil everyone's expectations, but seeing that everyone was confused, she immediately explained with a smile. The reason it is called taper fragrance dew is because the medicinal ingredient used is the blood of the mutated beast, dream-eating taper. Just mixing a drop of this into tea and drinking it will last for 7 days, and you will have good dreams every day. This doesn't mean much to ordinary cultivators, but due to the influence of cultivation methods and cultivation bases, some master cultivators have difficulty sleeping peacefully. The long-term effect of this might lead to qi deviation, thus this taper aromatic dew works best to alleviate this. As Chu Wanning listened, he suddenly thought of the realistic dream he had earlier, which was not quite a nightmare, but did give him a vague feeling of unease. The pavilion master was still pushing her medicine with all her might. In addition, this taper fragrance dew also has the effect of regulating spirit chi and helping with cultivation. Chu Wanning was still deep in thought, unmoved. If you have children at home who are training, taper-scented dew is also excellent for them. Thinking that there would be teachers who would buy it for their children, the Han Lin Divine Hands deliberately made these 5 bottles of taper-scented dew in 5 flavors. The red bottle is flavored with lychee, the yellow bottle with orange, the white bottle with milk, the purple bottle with grape and the black bottle with mulberry. These are extremely pure in sweetness and taste 100 times better than ordinary sweets. Once this is drunk, the taste stays on the lips and teeth for a whole day, which is wonderful. As soon as she finished speaking, a silver stick fell from the 2nd floor. Because the 2nd and 3rd floors were far away, it was inconvenient to call out the price. So, the price was written on the silver stick and then the stick was thrown down. The silver stick was covered with a spell and would accurately float in front of the pavilion master. The 2nd pavilion master pinched the stick that floated in front of her and looked at it. At the same time, in the private room, Chu Wanning casually put down the writing brush he had just used and leisurely drank his tea. Mo Ran looked at him from the side, unable to help but twitch his lips. The 2nd pavilion master's voice came from downstairs. The 2nd floor's heaven room bids 500,000 gold. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? As soon as this was said, there was an uproar from all directions. This taper-scented dew was good, but it was obviously not as popular as the love pills. 5 boxes of love pills were sold for 300,000 gold and these 5 bottles of taper-scented dew starting bid is already 500,000 gold. This price was already too high. It should be the parents of some young master who wants to buy it. Someone muttered. It must be for the young master of a rich family who wants to cultivate, someone else commented. Some of the cultivators in the crowd who had suffered from chi deviation hardened their hearts. I bid 550,000 gold for these 5 bottles. Taper-scented dew, the current price is 550,000 gold. Is there anyone? Before the 2nd pavilion master could finish speaking, another silver stick slowly floated down from the air. It was also thrown down from the 2nd floor's heaven room. She took a look and couldn't help but open her eyes wide. My apologies, everyone, I misunderstood earlier. I would like to correct it. Just now, the guest on the 2nd floor said that he bid 500,000 gold for each bottle, so the total is 2.5 million gold. Only a fool would fight with Chu Wanning for this price. Seeing the attendant bring in the 5 bottles of taper-scented dew, Mo Ran felt that he was feeling a little bit unwell. 2.5 million gold. Chu Wanning bought himself a dessert for. Seeing Mo Ran's expression as if he had seen a ghost, Chu Wanning calmly asked, "What's wrong?" "Ahaha, it's nothing. I just didn't expect Shizun to like this kind of thing. It's a child's item, why would I like it?" Chu Wanning calmly said, "I bought it for Xiaosini." "Really?" Mo Ran's eyebrows twitched. "Let's see how long you can continue this pretense." The items for auction were taken out one by one. Although the following items were also rare spiritual medicines and treasures, they were of no value to Mo Ran and Chu Wanning. The two of them drank tea while waiting for the holy weapon Gile. Mo Ran leaned against the window. His black clothes wrapped around his thin waist, making his shoulders and legs look even wider. He looked at the lively situation below and then looked up at the Rufeng Sek's private room upstairs. "Ah Shizun, how did uncle settle the matter at the Peach Blossoms Spring? You haven't told me the details yet." "It can't be considered settled. This matter can't be blown out of proportion, for fear of alerting the enemy." Although the sect leader knew the truth, he couldn't expose it. However, he fell out with the feathered tribe and brought Shimei and Xuemeng back to Shizhong Peak. At that time, the argument was very fierce. The disciples of several sects saw it. Some people felt that the peach blossom spring was unreliable and left. This Yewangzi is probably one of them. Chu Wanning finished eating a piece of Osman Thus cake and reached for the second one. The sect leader said to the outside world that you caused trouble and is reflecting behind closed doors at Shi Shengpeak. This can more or less cover your tracks for a while. Mo Ran scratched his head. It sounds very troublesome. Thank you for your hard work, uncle. As he was muttering, the pavilion master of the Xianyuan pavilion on the 9-layered lotus platform suddenly used a sound amplification technique to clear her throat. Her pleasant voice instantly spread to every inch of space. The next item for sale is an extremely rare treasure. It can be ranked in the top 10 of our pavilion's 3 years auction. With just this sentence, the pavilion got dead silent. After a while, it was as if a spoonful of water had been poured into a pot of boiling oil. With a whoosh, there was an uproar. Almost everyone's eyes shone brightly as they whispered to each other. To be ranked in the top 10 of Xianyuan Pavilion's 3 years auction, what kind of treasure was this? For many people, to be able to see this kind of thing with their own eyes was a great fortune, not to mention buying it. The buyers were getting more and more excited. The tension in the air had even reached the point where it could be touched. The people below were looking forward to it. The people in the box also looked up and focused their gazes on the lotus platform. Mo Ran whispered, "It's the holy weapon Gilet." Chu Wanning didn't say anything. As the center of the stone platform split open again, the second pavilion master of the Xianyuan pavilion's clear voice reverberated everywhere. "Please let me present this treasure, the butterfly-boned beauty feast." "What?" Mo Ran was shocked. His hand suddenly gripped the window frame. "It's not the holy weapon." Chu Wanning didn't expect this either. He suddenly stood up and walked to Mo Ran's side, looking downstairs with him. They saw a stone couch slowly rising from the center of the lotus platform. 8 shackles as thick as a person's wrist were stacked on top of the couch, locking up a constantly struggling living thing. However, that living thing was completely covered by a felt, so for a moment, no one could clearly see what was underneath. However, this didn't affect the excited atmosphere in the slightest. The butterfly-boned beauty feast, regardless of appearance, was already famous throughout the world. Legend has it that during the ancient time, before heaven and earth were separated, the demon race and the human race lived together on the cultivation continent. At that time, there was a race of demons called the butterfly-boned clan. Their martial strength wasn't high, but their bodies contained an enormous amount of spiritual energy. Directly eating the flesh of a member of the butterfly-bone clan or having intercourse with them could greatly increase one's cultivation, so much that those without spiritual core could instantly build their foundation, and those with spiritual core could even advance directly to the Grand Master stage. It was precisely because of this that the butterfly-bone clan was exterminated in the early days of the Great War. They were either captured as slaves for intercourse or directly killed to eat their flesh and drink their blood. Nowadays, there are no more pure-blooded butterfly-bone clan. However, in the vast sea of people, there were still descendants of the butterfly-bone clan. Most of their flesh and blood were useless, and they were no different from ordinary cultivators. However, there were still a very small number of people who showed signs of atavism. Although their flesh and blood weren't as effective as their ancestors in the ancient time, they could still greatly increase a cultivator's talent. These people were called the butterfly-boned beauty feast. This feast had 2 meanings. A pillow seat, or a banquet. It meant that they could be placed on the pillow seat to have intercourse with or be eaten alive. The former and the latter depended on the preferences of the buyer. When a member of the butterfly-bone clan showed signs of atavism, the cultivation world would not treat them as humans. Although they were no different from ordinary people, the cultivation world defined them as commodities for their own selfish reasons. Therefore, although the act of selling the butterfly-boned beauty feast is a horrifying act, it didn't violate any taboos. However, A righteous grandmaster like Chu Wanning had a very ugly expression about this. This butterfly-boned beauty feast was not acquired by Gai Yuye sect. It was sold on commission. Therefore, the Xianyuan Pavilion will take 30% of the price of the transaction as commission. Esteemed guests, please calculate the amount clearly and act according to your ability. After the second pavilion master finished speaking, she snapped her fingers and the felt cloth covering the bed slid down. Inside the pavilion, there was complete silence. Everyone stared intently at the chained body on the stone bed. In the huge Xianyuan Pavilion, even the sound of breathing and heartbeat could be heard. It was a young woman with a slender body and snow-white skin. Her long silk-like hair was draped over her shoulders, and she was completely naked except for a layer of transparent gauze. Her full and lustrous body trembled slightly, like newly frozen snow or jade soaked in water, emitting a soft glow under the light. 8 iron chains were tightly wrapped around her delicate body, clanging as she struggled, but it easily aroused the bestial desires in men. Even the dissolute men who had seen countless women would admit without hesitation that this woman was a rare beauty in the world. Excellent and of top quality. A female butterfly-bone beauty in the prime of her life. The pavilion master smiled sweetly and stepped forward to unlock a chain, pinching the woman's wrist like lightning before she could resist and lifting it into mid-air. The chastity sand that the Hanlin divine hand put on it is for everyone to see clearly that she is a virgin. The girl's mouth was gagged with snow-white cloth so she could only make pitiful whimpering sound and unable to utter a single word. She could only cry large teardrops which are rolling down the corners of her eyes. Those golden tears undoubtedly showed that she was an atavistic descendant of the butterfly bone clan. Some people were gasping and some were swallowing their saliva. Such an atmosphere made it seem as if the Xianyuan Pavilion was not full of cultivators at the moments but of a pack of hungry wolves instead, drooling at the corners of their mouths, greedily staring at their prey. Pa! Chu Wanning's cool gaze withdrew and fell on Mo Ran. Mo Ran's face was pale and his fingernails dug into the wooden lattice. He actually broke a corner of the windowsill. What's wrong? No, nothing. Mo Ran took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He shook his head at Chu Wanning. I feel that buying and selling living people like this is disgusting. He wasn't telling the truth. His eyes quietly glanced back at the butterfly-boned beauty feast. This woman was the #1 beauty in the cultivation world that he married after he became an emperor in his previous life. Song Kaiyutong. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 81. This venerable one's Bulet Ngui. At the same time, in the Rufeng sect's private room on the 3rd floor, Ye Wangzi's tall and slender figure stood beside the carved railing of the hollowed-out Tonghua flower pattern. His brows were tightly furrowed, and his lips were thinly pursed. Young Master Ye, Elder Su asked us to buy the godly weapon. If you really want to bid for the butterfly-boned beauty feast, I'm afraid you won't have enough money. It's fine. I'll pay for it myself. Seeing Ye Wangzi's insistence, the Rufeng sect's disciples secretly looked at each other and didn't utter another word. The pavilion master of the Xianyuan Pavilion said crisply, the butterfly-boned beauty feast bid starts at 10 million gold coins. Esteemed cultivators may place your bids. 11 million. 12 million. The noise on the 1st floor grew louder and louder as the price soared rapidly. 19 million. I bid 25 million. The sudden increase of 6 million made many cultivators sigh and sit down while shaking their heads. At this time, silver sticks from the private rooms on the 2nd floor fell in front of the pavilion master of the Xianyuan Pavilion. She quickly took them one by one and opened the slips between her fingers. Like opening a folding fan, she opened the slips with the price written on them. The highest bidder at the moment. After the pavilion master read it, she said clearly, the black room #1 offers 35 million. 35 million. Everyone gasped and looked back at the black room on the 2nd floor. However, the lights were dim and the silver gauze fluttered, but they couldn't see who was sitting there. 35 million is enough to buy a palace on the Immortal Island. Who offered such a high price? It's too outrageous. So rich, it must be someone from the 10 great sects. I wonder which one it is. Chu Wanning closed his eyes. When he heard the price, he asked Mo Ran, "Did you bring enough money?" "Not enough." Mo Ran was extremely shocked to see Song Kayutong here. When he heard Chu Wanning calling him, he suddenly came back to his senses and asked cautiously, "What do you want to do, Shizun?" "Buy her." Mo Ran widened his eyes and waved his hands. "No, no, this woman is a burden. Where are we going to put her after we buy her? In the future, we'll need to rent an extra horse and book an extra room to sleep in. No, don't buy it. Who said I was going to travel with her? Just buy her and set her free." Chu Wanning opened his eyes and stretched out his hand indifferently. "Give me the money." Mo Ran clutched the money pouch tightly. "No, no. I'll return it to you when we get back. This is the money to buy the holy weapon. Don't you already have Jiangui? What do you want another holy weapon for? Give me the money." Mo Ran felt like his head was about to explode. This Song Kayutong, when he first met her in his previous life, she was already a disciple of the Rufeng sect. At that time, when Mo Ran massacred the city, he saw that she looked a bit like Shi Mei, so he spared her life. Later, he saw that she was well behaved and obedient and her temperament was very similar to Shi Mei's, so he finally made her his empress. However, this was one of the decisions that Mo Ran regretted the most. Now, Chu Wanning, this cold-hearted guy, actually wanted to buy her? How could Mo Ran agree to this? Not to mention 40 million, even if this woman was worth 4 copper coins, Mo Ran wouldn't buy her. No. Even if someone gave him 40 million, he wouldn't want her. The two were in a deadlock. Suddenly, they saw a golden stick floating down from the 3rd floor. It was the top stick. The most expensive stick in the Xianyuan pavilion was this kind of golden stick. There was no need to write anything on it. A stick was equivalent to 50 million gold. Once this kind of price was announced, almost no one would have the strength to compete, so it was also called the top stick. Everyone was stunned, and then there was an uproar. It's the Rufeng sect. The Rufeng sect has dropped the top stick. Chu Wanning no longer paid attention to Mo Ran, who was tightly clutching the money pouch. Instead, he turned his head and looked outside. From his angle, he could see the first room on the 3rd floor. Ye Wangzi was a person who was too lazy to hide. He had already tied up the snow moon gauze used by the Xianyuan pavilion to protect the privacy of the guests. He stood with his hands behind his back and stood by the railing. His expression was solemn and nothing else could be discerned from his handsome face. He glanced at the noisy scene below and seemed to be somewhat speechless. He turned around and walked into the depths of the room. Mo Ran heaved a sigh of relief and said to Chu Wanning, "Shizun, you can rest assured. This young master Ye lives with me in the Peach Blossom Spring. I have some understanding of him. He is kind and benevolent. He won the butterfly-boned beauty seat and he won't do anything heartless." In the Rufeng sect's private room on the 3rd floor, Ye Wangzi sat at a table covered with embroidered golden flowers and silver leaves. He poured a cup of fragrant tea. When the tea was finished, there was a knock on the door. Ye Wangzi's voice was gentle and proper. "Please come in. Young Master Ye, the butterfly-boned beauty seat has been brought to you. Please take a look. Thank you for your trouble. You may leave." The Xianyuan pavilion's attendants retreated and the room was silent for a moment. The butterfly-boned beauty feast's hands and feet were bound by the forbidden spell. She knelt on the ground and there was panic in her eyes as she trembled. Because of her miserable crying, her peach blossom eyes were tinged with a faint red hue. It was very moving. However, Ye Wangzi only glanced at her. There was no distracting thought in his clear eyes. He raised his hand and removed the restriction. The floor is cold. Miss, don't be frightened. Sit down and have a cup of hot tea. The butterfly-boned beauty feast trembled. She opened her crystal-like eyes and continued to curl up. She didn't dare to speak or move. Ye Wangzi sighed. He asked the left and right attendants to bring a cloak and handed it to her. Miss, don't worry. I didn't buy you for cultivation. Put on this cloak first. If there's anything, we can talk about it later. You. Ye Wangzi saw that she still didn't move. She looked very pitiful as she raised her head timidly. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. He knelt down on one knee and leveled his eyes with her. My name is Ye Wangzi. May I ask for your name? My surname is Song. She hesitantly glanced at Ye Wangzi. Her eyes were hazy and she looked very wronged. My name is Song Kayutong. Thank you, young master Ye. Downstairs, Mo Ran was secretly pondering. In his previous life, when he saw Song Kayutong, she was already a disciple of the Rufeng sect. Presumably, she was saved by Ye Wangzi during the auction at the Xianyuan pavilion. The butterfly-boned beauty seat wouldn't be treated like a normal person. However, once they entered one of the great sects and became a disciple, it was a different story. Mo Ran sighed in his heart. He didn't have a deep understanding of Ye Wangzi. He only knew that this person was very upright and was one of the most powerful people in Jianghu besides Chu Wanning. When Mo Ran slaughtered the 72 cities of the Rufeng sect, he had fought with Ye Wangzi once. That surging momentum of his swordsmanship and his heroic figure were truly unforgettable. Among the majestic 72 cities under Rufeng sect, Mo Ran easily conquered them. Those famous and prestigious Rufeng sect city lords were nothing in his eyes. Only this Ye Wangzi, only this Ye Wangzi. Mo Ran couldn't take down the 7 cities he guarded for a long time. Even when the cities were finally conquered, this person knelt among the jagged bones covered in blood. His eyes were clear and his heart remained unchanged. At that time, the Rufeng sect leader Nangonglu had fled. Many people kowtowed and begged for mercy, begging Mo Ran to let them live. However, Ye Wangzi's long eyebrows were knitted. He closed his eyes and his expression was cold. Mo Ran still remembered that before he killed him, he asked, "Will you surrender?" "No, I won't," was his steadfast answer. Mo Ran smiled, sitting in the golden dragon phoenix chair of the sect leader of the Rufeng sect. His eyelashes trembled as his gaze swept across the dense crowd. Not to mention the ordinary disciples, there were 6 or 7 former city lords and more than 10 protectors. They were all prostrating themselves in the dust, trembling. Crows circled in the lead gray sky and blood-red banners fluttered in the wind. Mo Ran raised his hand and said, "Kill them all." Before Ye Wangzi died, he said, "Among the disciples of the 72 cities of the glorious Rufeng sect, not a single one is a man." Bloody light filled the sky. Mo Ran held the newly obtained beauty Song Kayutong in his arms. That peerless beauty's face was like gold paper. Looking at the demon in front of her, her soft body couldn't help but shiver. "Good girl, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. From now on, you will follow this venerable one." Mo Ran stroked her hair and smiled. "Come, tell me again. What's your name? What did you do in the Rufeng sect? I just heard it once, but I didn't remember it well." "My name is Song Kayutong," she said in a panic. I was Ye Wangzi's maid." Ye Wangzi's maid? At that time, she had answered Mo Ran like this. However, as a butterfly-boned beauty feast, Mo Ran didn't know how she had entered the Rufeng sect and how Ye Wangzi took her in as a maid. Until today, after his rebirth and coming to the Xianyuan pavilion, Mo Ran suddenly realized that it was actually Ye Wangzi who had spent a fortune in order to save her from danger. However, it was clear that Ye Wangzi's eventual defeat under Mo Ran's blade was largely due to Song Kayutong's betrayal. Thinking about this, Moran couldn't help but frown. His hatred for Song Kayutong increased by several degrees. He must have been possessed back then to think that this woman was like Shimei. The last item in this auction is an ownerless holy weapon, the pavilion master said tirelessly, interrupting Moran's thoughts. This holy weapon also doesn't belong to Gaiyuye sect but was being sold on consignment. The finale of every auction would be leaked before the start of the auction. Therefore, compared to the intense reaction when they heard the words butterfly-boned beauty feast, the cultivators below were much calmer although were very much eager to bid. The white jade lotus in the middle bloomed again and a silver satin box with the pattern of sun, moon, mountains, and rivers on the stone platform slowly floated up. The box was long and narrow and the embroidery on the surface was very delicate. Those who were knowledgeable could tell at a glance that the golden thread totem on the box was from the most famous embroidery workshop in Gasu of Xianyun Pavilion. Aside from the divine weapon inside, this box alone was worth hundreds of gold ingots. This holy weapon was found in Mount Jun's mass burial mound. Its previous owner has passed away and after verification by the Xianyuan Pavilion, the holy weapon has not recognized a new owner. The pavilion master paused and continued, as everyone knows, holy weapons are engraved with inscriptions. However, because the owner of this weapon has passed away for many years, the inscriptions on the weapon had been worn out. The only thing that can be recognized is the word return. Someone muttered, after saying so much, "Why don't you open the box first?" "Ayo, forget it. You'll get used to it. Isn't this the usual style of the Xianyuan Pavilion? Let's say a few words first, then show the goods to everyone." "That's true." Moran found it funny. He turned his head and wanted to say a few words to Chu Wanning. However, when he turned around, he saw Chu Wanning's sword-like eyebrows furrowed. Chu Wanning's slender jade-like fingers were supporting his forehead. His face was as white as frost. He jumped in fright and hurriedly asked, "Shizun, what's wrong?" "I just suddenly don't feel well." "Why do you feel unwell? Did you catch a cold again?" Moran leaned over and touched his forehead. "You don't have a fever." Chu Wanning shook his head but didn't say anything. His expression was listless. Moran didn't know what to do. He could only say, "I'll pour you a cup of tea." As he spoke, he poured a cup of hot tea. After thinking for a while, he also poured in a little bit of the taper-scented dew that he had just bought. The medicine refined by the Hanlin divine hands was world famous. After Chu Wanning finished drinking the tea mixed with the taper-scented dew, he did feel better. His face didn't look as bad as before. He raised his eyes and looked at the bidding below again. Moran stood to the side and tidied up the tea set. He poured a second cup for him. The Xianyuan Pavilion doesn't know the full name of this holy weapon. However, due to a coincidence, it returned to the world. Moreover, the inscription on the weapon itself has the word return. Therefore, we temporarily came up with a name for it, Gile. Finally, an impatient person couldn't wait any longer and shouted from below, "Pavilion Master, you've said so much. You've already whetted our appetite. Quickly open the box and let us see what this holy weapon looks like." The Pavilion Master of the Xianyuan Pavilion smiled faintly. "Esteemed cultivators, please don't be impatient. According to the rules of the cultivation world, after the death of the original owner of the holy weapon, the weapon should be given to the descendants according to their blood relations. Gila was found in a mass grave. Our pavilion doesn't know the identity of its original owner. However, after the box is opened, everyone can release their spiritual energy to sense the weapon. If there is someone who resonates with this holy weapon, then that person is most probably a blood relative of the original owner. Then, there's no need to bid. Gila will naturally belong to its rightful owner." "Ha ha ha, how could there be such a coincidence in the world?" Most of the cultivators present burst into laughter. "That's right. That's almost impossible. But it's a waste not to try. It's not bad to try our luck. The pavilion master looked at the people below the stage with a smile and said crisply, "That's right. It's always good to try your luck. Esteemed cultivators, please focus. I'll open the box now." She snapped her fingers. Two of Gyu Yesek disciples immediately came up to her left and right. They were both about 15 or 16-year-old girls. They flew up to the lotus platform and placed their slender hands on the sun-moon brocade box. Each of them had an exquisite crystal key in their hands. They carefully inserted it into the keyhole of the box. With a ka-ka-ka sound, the lock fell off. When Mo Ran saw this, he inexplicably thought of the scene at the Jinjinj Lake when he was given Jiangui. At that time, it was clearly said that only his most beloved person in the world could open the ever-yearning box. He didn't know why that brocade box yielded in Chu Wanning's hands. The surrounding people held their breaths. Countless pairs of eyes hidden under the hood stared at the narrow box. The lid of the sun-moon brocade box slowly opened. The atmosphere in the air was extremely tense, like a drawn bowstring. Thousands of people gathered in the pavilion. It was so quiet that even the sound of a strand of hair falling to the ground could be heard. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the simple and unadorned blade that was exposed in the box. Some were greedy, some were curious, some were appreciative. Only Mo Ran's eyes widened the moment he saw the weapon in the box. All the blood in his face faded in an instant. He had lived 2 lifetimes. In both his previous and current life, he owned holy weapons. He had fought with more than 10 holy weapon owners. As for the item that the Xianyuan pavilion put up for auction this time, he thought that he would be unmoved. But he was wrong. Holy weapon Gila, the pavilion master's crisp voice broke the silence, has the shape of the saber, 4 feet long and 3 inches wide. It has no sheath and is completely black. It doesn't reflect the light of the sun. Mo Ran's fingertips trembled slightly. He almost blurted out the 2 words between his lips. Buletangui. No return. No return. It is the year when you cannot return anymore. Asterisk. Mo Ran, you obtained this holy weapon. Why did you ask me to seal its spiritual sense and not give it a name? Shizun, this disciple is not very knowledgeable. This name can only be given only once. I'm afraid that if it sounds bad, I won't be satisfied with it in the future. Asterisk. Aran, why haven't you thought of a name for your sword yet? You can't keep calling it that saber and this saber. It's fine. I'm taking my time thinking about it. This is a holy weapon. I want to give it the most beautiful name in the world. Only then will it be worthy of it. Ha ha ha. Asterisk. Later, after Shimei died, Mo Ran once wanted Chu Wanning to release the seal. He wanted to name his divine weapon Mingjing. But at that time, Chu Wanning said that because he fought against the ghost realm, his spiritual power was depleted. He really didn't have the energy to release the seal on the blade. So, this matter was left unsettled. Later on, Mo Ran and Chu Wanning's relationship deteriorated badly. Mo Ran was no longer willing to ask him to unseal the saber. Thus, the saber, which was stained with blood, remained nameless for many years. But this was no longer important. At that time, there was no one in the world who didn't know about Mo Weiyu. Everyone knew about the demonic blade in his hand. In the end, Chu Wanning also died. Along with his death, the seal that has been on Mo Ran's blade for more than 10 years has dissipated. That night, Mo Ran drank a lot of pear blossom wine and got drunk. Stroking the cold blade, he didn't know if he was happy or sad. He flicked the blade and listened to the sound of the drum and horn. He laid on the roof of Wushan Palace laughing heartily from pain to madness. He didn't remember how long he cried that night, but when he woke up in the morning, 2 cold words were engraved on the saber that had been nameless for more than 10 years. No return. Junbu Letangui. Never to return. But why would this weapon, which had battled with him 100 times in his previous life, appear in the world after his rebirth? Why would it appear in the auction of the Xianyuan Pavilion? Before Mo Ran had time to think, the thousands of cultivators in the field released their own spiritual energy, scrambling to try and resonate with Buletin Gui. Mo Ran. It was useless. Since it's Buletin Gui and since Mo Ran was here, besides him, there could not be a second person in the world who could use the saber. But did its appearance have anything to do with the little bastard hiding behind the scenes? If it did, that person let Buletin Gui out at this time clearly because he knew that Mo Ran and Chu Wanning were trailing his tracks. Then his purpose was definitely not to test who had wood spiritual essence. What exactly is he trying to do? Also, is this Buletin Gui sword real? Or was it just a bait like those fakes from Jinjinj Lake? With such doubts, Mo Ran slightly probed a little with his spiritual energy. If this Buletin Gui was not fake, then there would definitely be some resonance with him. This resonance could not be too obvious, otherwise it would be detected. Just a little bit would be enough, however, just as he released a very weak trace of spiritual power, he suddenly heard a slight groan behind him. Shizun. Mo Ran turned around and saw that Chu Wanning's brows were tightly knitted, his lips were blue, and he had already fallen to the side of the table. His snow-white clothes spread out like smoke and his handsome face was paler than the snow. His eyelashes were down and his eyes were tightly closed. It seemed as if some chronic illness had flared up that he had actually fainted at this moment. Mo Ran did not expect such a thing to happen, and could not help but turn pale with fright. He suddenly withdrew the spirit power that he had released and ran back to Chu Wanning's side, hugging him. Shizun, what happened to you? End chapter.